Hello folks, in this video I wanted to finally introduce the hub world system that I have implemented in my game. The gist of it is I can control the player in this little hub level and I'll come across these different doors and each door represents a different level. For example, this one represents level 1-1. So from here I could just enter this door and go directly to the first level. Now this idea is directly inspired by Kirby's Adventure. In that game, there were a bunch of different worlds that you could go through, and each world had its own hub area that you could explore, and each of these areas had a bunch of doors that represented the individual levels that you could just enter in order to start that level. And my game is planned to be set up somewhat similarly. I currently plan to have 6 different zones, each with 4 individual levels, and probably a boss for each zone as well. Now, do not hold me to the promise of implementing boss fights. I currently have absolutely no idea how I'll implement that, given the gameplay style of this game. If you do have any ideas for what a boss might look like, please let me know in the comments because I'm eager for any source of inspiration, honestly. That aside, one thing that you might notice about these hub areas is that they are zoomed in farther than regular levels. If I go over here to level 1-1 and enter this, you'll notice that it zooms out a little bit. The levels themselves are planned to be zoomed out compared to the hub areas because we need more room to be able to fly and do these aerial acrobatics in the regular levels compared to the hub areas. Getting this adaptive zooming was pretty challenging to get done considering that I've built the whole game around the wider zoom out range, but I really like how the hub worlds are zoomed in. It's more intimate, it feels more like you're with the character, and you just weren't able to accomplish that in the regular levels. So the plan for each of the hub worlds is that you land in them, you can do the first level, like here is 1-1, and the rest of the level, for example in this case all the stuff to the right, will not be accessible at first. Maybe I have some kind of barrier blocking off the rest of this hub world until you actually beat 1-1. And as you beat each level, you'll be able to progress farther and discover more doors to unlock different areas of the hub world, and ultimately progressing through the game. The challenge after this was to implement multiple different hub worlds with their own environments and backgrounds, and the next hub world that I did was the mountain area. And this is what that looks like. It's obviously quite a bit different from before with a totally different background and a different tile set for the ground. And once again, this is going to be set up very similar, where you start in one area, you have to explore a little bit in order to find the level doors, beat that level to unlock different parts of that hub world specifically. So for instance, this door right here should represent level 2-1 because it's world 2 level 1, but this is just a placeholder door. I think it just leads to nowhere currently. Oh, even better, it just crashes the game. So now that I have multiple hub areas, the question becomes, how do you transition between them? Obviously, I want my player to be able to explore the full scale of the world, so there needs to be some way to change between each of these zones. And I decided to kind of lean into this whole concept of playing as a bird that can fly, and I made it so that when you fly up above the screen, that's what triggers this transition. So here, if as the player I fly up here, we're taken to this white screen where it shows each of the different zones that we've unlocked, and I can choose which one I want to fly to. Now keep in mind this is just placeholder. I'm planning on actually having some kind of world map where you can see where you're flying to with a bit more art here, but for now this serves the functionality that I'm going for. So if I press 1, the player does this little flight down animation where he comes in from the sky and lands on the ground itself. And I really like how this animation looks. I had a lot of fun building it. I go back to the mountains, it flies straight down and lands on the ground very smoothly. Now, one very cool thing to point out about this animation is that when the player flies down from the sky, this bird that you see right here that's flying down isn't the same as this bird that you land and that you control with the arrow keys. That flight down animation is its own object, its own X and Y position that's completely separate from the real player. And when that animation completes, it just warps the real player to its position and destroys itself. And just to give you a quick glimpse at the code, this is the object that I'm talking about. It's just called entrance. Entrance represents that flying bird animation that comes down from the sky. You can see that it has its own X and Y properties, and really the main way that this animation works is by calling a tween on it. Basically, a tween allows us to smoothly transition some value from one value to another. In this case, we are smoothly transitioning the Y position of this entrance object from, let's say, 0, which is at the very top of the screen, all the way down to, let's say, 300, which is at the very bottom of the screen. And then the other noteworthy aspect of this is the quad out easing type. If I were to have done just a linear easing type, it would be a very static, straight land. But with quad out, That's more of a start fast and then slow down as you approach the destination. And then the most interesting part is the on complete. When this tween is done and it reaches the destination of landing on the floor, we call this finish entrance function, which we can see right here. Finish entrance is just going to change the player object, the real player, to the current destination X and Y position, or in other words, where this entrance object has landed in the game. The player's state is changed to 1, meaning the player can now move again, and then the entrance object's X and Y positions are changed to -100, -100, which, spoiler alert, is just off the screen and can't be seen. So essentially, once this tween completes, the entrance object is going to replace itself with the real player object and then hide the entrance object from the game completely. And in the end, we have this really nice transition where the player smoothly flies in from the sky and then becomes playable again. And with this in place, I'm very excited to actually dig into this a bit more, adding more doors to each of the zones and adding new zones with their own levels. And I think that about wraps up everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. Thank you so much for watching to the end. If you enjoyed, be sure to like the video and keep in mind that I post content very similar to this every single week. So if you enjoy my stuff, be sure to subscribe. I'd really, really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.